The grand chamber fell silent as Captain Hyun-tae stepped forward. His uniform bore the marks of deep space travel, dust from distant worlds still clinging to the fabric. Around him, the representatives of 40 species watched with cold eyes. Some had scales, others had multiple limbs, and a few existed as pure energy contained in crystalline shells. They all shared one thing in common: they did not want to hear what he had to say. Hyun-tae activated the holographic display. Images filled the air above the council floor. Dark shapes moved through space, consuming everything in their path. Planets turned gray and lifeless. Stars dimmed and died. Entire solar systems became empty voids. "This is the Void Swarm," Hyun-tae said. His voice carried through the massive room. "Our deep space scouts first detected them 8 months ago. Since then, we have been tracking their movement. They are heading toward Council space. They will arrive in less than 3 years. Chancellor Vexilier, a towering reptilian being with emerald scales, leaned forward on his throne. His forked tongue tasted the air. "Captain Tae, humanity has been part of this council for only 150 years. We have maintained peace in this galaxy for over 12,000 years. Do you truly believe we need lessons in threat assessment from a species that only recently discovered faster-than-light travel?" Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Hyun-tae kept his expression neutral, but his jaw tightened. Behind him, Dr. Hana Wu prepared her data tablets. She had spent months analyzing the swarm's behavior patterns. She knew what was coming. And she knew these beings would not listen. "With respect, Chancellor, this is not about age or experience," Hyun-tae continued. "This is about survival. The Void Swarm does not negotiate. It does not stop. It consumes biological matter and incorporates technology. Every world it takes makes it stronger. Every defense it encounters teaches it new ways to attack." The High Arbiter, Malquin, spoke next. Its voice sounded like crystal chimes. "We have records of many species claiming the galaxy faced extinction. All were wrong. The Council endures because we do not panic. We analyze. We plan. We act with wisdom, not fear." Dr. Hana Wu stepped forward. "High Arbiter, if I may present the biological data—" "You may not," Vexler interrupted. "This council has heard enough human paranoia for one session. Let us address the real issue. Humanity has expanded its military fleet by 40% in the last year. You claim this is for defense against this supposed threat. We believe you are using fear to justify an arms buildup." Ambassador Quan Jin stood from his seat. He was older than the other humans, his hair gray, his face lined with decades of diplomatic service. "Chancellor, you accuse us of warmongering while ignoring clear evidence of an existential threat. This is not about military expansion. This is about preparing for what is coming." "What is coming," Vexilier said, his voice dripping with contempt, "is a human attempt to dominate council military affairs. You are a young species, aggressive, violent. You have fought more wars in your short history than most species fight in millennia. Now you invent threats to justify your nature." The council chamber erupted in discussion. Species that had never agreed on anything now united in their suspicion of humanity. Commander Dae Sung, watching from the human delegation, felt his hands curl into fists. He had fought in 3 border conflicts, defending council space from pirates and raiders. He had bled for these people, and now they called his species warmongers. The vote came swiftly. The council determined that humanity's warnings were unsubstantiated and alarmist. They declared that human military expansion threatened galactic peace. By a vote of 37-3, they demanded humanity dismantle 60% of its defensive fleet within 6 months. This was to be a show of good faith and commitment to council demilitarization protocols. Hyun-tae looked at Ambassador Quan Jin. The old diplomat's face showed no emotion, but his eyes burned with quiet fury. Around them, the council celebrated their decision. They had, in their minds, prevented human aggression. They had maintained peace. They had done their duty. Ambassador Quan Jin walked slowly to the center of the chamber. The conversations died down. Something in the human's posture made even the most arrogant council members pause. This council was founded on principles of mutual protection and shared wisdom, Quan Jin said. His voice was soft, but it carried to every corner of the vast room. For 150 years, humanity has honored those principles. We shared our technology. We fought your wars. We defended your borders. We asked only to be treated as equals. He paused, looking at each council member in turn. Today, you have made your position clear. You do not see us as equals. You see us as children to be disciplined, as threats to be contained. You dismiss our warnings not because they lack evidence, but because you cannot imagine that a young species might see danger that you have missed. Vexillier started to speak, but Quan Jin raised his hand. We came in peace. We fought your wars. We shared our knowledge freely. But we will not sacrifice our species on the altar of your arrogance. We will not disarm in the face of certain death simply to ease your political concerns. We will not watch our people die to prove we are not the monsters you imagine us to be. He pulled a data chip from his pocket and placed it on the speaker's podium. This contains humanity's formal withdrawal from the Galactic Council. Effective immediately, all human diplomatic staff will return to human space. All human military vessels will withdraw from Council territory. All human colonies within Council jurisdiction will be evacuated. You wanted us to prove we are not a threat? We are removing ourselves entirely. The chamber exploded into chaos. Species shouted over each other. Some demanded the humans reconsider. Others celebrated their departure. Vexillier stood, his massive form towering over the assembly, calling for order. Dr. Hana Wu gathered her data tablets. Years of research, proof of the coming storm, all of it ignored. She looked at her colleague, a young scientist named Hai Un, who had been born on a council world. You should come with us, Hana said quietly. Hai Un shook her head. Someone needs to stay. Someone needs to keep trying to warn them. They will not listen. I know, but I have to try. The human delegation walked out of the council chamber. Their footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. Behind them, Chancellor Vexillier addressed the remaining council members. Let them go, he said. Humanity has shown its true nature. They are too proud to accept council wisdom, too aggressive to embrace peace. We are better off without them. The council agreed. They congratulated themselves on handling a difficult situation with grace and wisdom. They returned to their usual business: trade disputes, territorial negotiations, cultural exchanges. None of them noticed the countdown that had started. 3 years until the swarm arrived. 3 years that they would waste, while humanity prepared alone. Captain Hyun Tae boarded the human transport ship. Commander Dae Sung joined him on the bridge. They looked back at Nexus Prime, the shining heart of Council civilization. They will all die, Dae Sung said quietly. Yes, Hyun Tae replied, but we will save as many as we can. When they finally realize their mistake, we will be ready. The human ships departed, leaving the Council to its fate. 6 months had passed since humanity left the Council. Director Rena J. stood in the command center of the Resettlement Bureau, watching screens that displayed the largest civilian evacuation in human history. 2.3 billion people were being moved from frontier colonies to the inner worlds. Every day, thousands of ships made the journey. Every day, families left homes they had built over generations. Status report, Rena said to her assistant. New Busan is at 80% evacuation. New Seoul completed evacuation yesterday. The outer rim colonies are falling behind schedule. People do not want to leave. Rena understood. She had visited these colonies. She had seen the farms, the cities, the schools. People had built lives there. Now they were being asked to abandon everything based on a threat they could not see. Captain Hyun-tae entered the command center. He had barely slept in weeks. His job was to coordinate the evacuation with military protection. Pirates and raiders had noticed the human exodus. Some saw it as an opportunity to attack vulnerable colony ships. "We lost another transport today," Tae said. "Raiders hit a civilian convoy near the outer marker. We got there in time, but 300 people died." Rena closed her eyes. 300 more names to add to the list. 300 families destroyed. The council? Still celebrating. They released a statement yesterday praising themselves for maintaining galactic stability through firm but fair governance. They think we left because we were ashamed of our aggressive nature. On the other side of human space, General Sorahan was building something the galaxy had never seen. The redemption line stretched across 50 star systems. It was not just a defensive barrier, it was a fortress network designed specifically to fight the Void Swarm. Every abandoned colony world became a weapons platform. Every asteroid was hollowed out and filled with soldiers and supplies. Every piece of space debris was turned into a mine or a drone launcher. Humanity was spending its entire economic output on this single line of defense. Sorahan walked through the construction site on what used to be New Jejudo. The colony had been evacuated 3 months ago. Now it was a military base covered in weapon emplacements. Engineers worked around the clock installing shield generators and plasma cannons. "General, the Council sent another observer ship," one of her officers reported. "They are watching from outside our territory." "Let them watch," Sora said. "Let them see what real preparation looks like." The Council observer was named Prilix, a junior diplomat assigned to monitor human activities. He had expected to find military exercises and weapon testing. Instead, he found something that confused him deeply. The humans were genuinely abandoning entire planets. Cities stood empty, power still running, buildings intact. Farms had crops growing in fields with no one to harvest them. Mines still had operational equipment. The humans were leaving behind trillions in infrastructure. Prilix reported this to his superiors. "They are not building an invasion force. They are running away from something." The Council dismissed his report. "Human psychology is complex," they told him. "They create elaborate scenarios to justify their paranoia. Continue observing." Captain Yuna Min commanded a civilian transport called the Evening Star. She had spent 30 years moving cargo between human colonies. Now she moved people, scared people, angry people, people who did not understand why they had to leave their homes. Her current assignment was the last evacuation run from New Busan. It was a beautiful colony world with blue oceans and green forests. 50,000 people still lived there, mostly farmers and their families who had refused earlier evacuation orders. "Captain Min, this is New Busan Ground Control," the radio crackled. "All civilians are aboard. You are clear for departure." Yuna looked at her co-pilot, a young man named Jay who had been born on New Busan. Tears ran down his face as he watched his home world fall away below them. "I grew up there," Jay said quietly. "My parents are buried there. My grandparents built our farm with their own hands. And now we just leave it all behind." "We leave so we can live," Yuna replied. "The dead will understand." The Evening Star cleared the atmosphere and prepared to engage its faster-than-light drive. Yuna was checking the final systems when her long-range sensors detected something at the edge of the solar system. At first, she thought it was a sensor malfunction. The readings made no sense. The mass was too large. The energy signature was unlike anything in the database. Then her computer analyzed the shape and composition, and Yuna felt her blood turn cold. "No," she whispered. "It cannot be. Not yet. We have 3 years." But there it was, the Void Swarm. Not the full force, but a vanguard fleet. Millions of biomechanical creatures, each the size of a small ship, moving through space like a living cloud. They were heading toward New Busan. Yuna activated the emergency transmission. "This is Captain Yuna Min of the Evening Star. The Void Swarm has entered the New Busan system. I repeat, the swarm is here. 3 years early. All human vessels, evacuate immediately." She also sent the transmission to the Council, as protocol required. "Council Emergency Network, this is Human Vessel Evening Star. The threat we warned you about has arrived. The Void Swarm is real. It is in Council space. Coordinates attached. Please respond." The Evening Star jumped to faster-than-light speed, escaping just as the swarm reached the planet. Yuna watched on her rear sensors as New Busan died. The swarm descended on the beautiful world like locusts. In hours, the oceans turned gray. The forests withered. The cities crumbled. By the end of the day, New Busan was a dead rock, stripped of all biological matter and useful resources. The swarm had fed. Now it would grow stronger. The Council received Yuna's transmission. It was reviewed by 3 different departments. They all reached the same conclusion. More human propaganda. An elaborate hoax designed to make the Council look foolish for dismissing human warnings. "The timing is suspicious," Chancellor Vexelier told his advisors. "Humanity leaves the Council and suddenly their supposed threat appears exactly where they said it would. They probably destroyed that colony themselves to create false evidence." The other Council members agreed. They sent a formal response to human space. "The Council does not appreciate continued attempts at manipulation. Further false claims will result in economic sanctions." Director Rena J. stood in the command center when Yuna's transmission arrived. She played it 3 times, each viewing more painful than the last. Then she activated the emergency network. "This is Director J. Project Exodus is now in full emergency mode. All evacuation schedules are accelerated. Every colony within 100 light-years of New Busan is to be abandoned immediately. Military assets are authorized to use force if civilians refuse to evacuate." Captain Yun Tae received his orders and deployed his fleet. Some people had to be carried onto evacuation ships. They screamed and fought, not understanding that death was coming. Tae understood their anger. He felt it too. But understanding did not change reality. General Sorahan received the news while inspecting the redemption line. She immediately ordered all construction crews to double their shifts. The swarm was 3 years early. That meant they had less time than planned. Every hour mattered now. "Get me Admiral Dae-sung," she ordered. Dae-sung commanded the fleet stationed at the redemption line. He had 5,000 ships, the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. Against the Void Swarm, he knew it might not be enough. "General Han, I received the New Busan report," Dae-sung said when the communication connected. "Orders?" "Hold the line," Sora replied. "No matter what comes through Council space, no matter how many refugees flee this way, no matter what the Council says or does, you hold that line. Humanity survives or dies based on your success." "Understood. General, the redemption line will hold." Across human space, the mood changed. Before, the evacuation had felt like an overreaction to some people, a waste of resources, political theater. Now everyone understood. The swarm was real. It was here, and it was coming for them all. Prilix, the Council observer, watched the human activity intensify. He saw colony after colony go dark as populations evacuated. He saw the military fleets move into defensive positions. He saw the fortress line growing stronger each day. He sent another report to the Council. The humans were telling the truth. Something has entered Council space from the direction they indicated. Human behavior suggests genuine fear, not political manipulation. The Council filed his report and ignored it. They had more important matters to discuss. a trade dispute between two member species, a cultural festival that needed planning, the expansion of the Grand Council chamber to accommodate 3 new member species. They celebrated their wisdom and their peace. They congratulated themselves on maintaining order in the galaxy. And in the darkness beyond their borders, the void swarm fed and grew stronger, preparing for the feast to come. The Draxian colony of Vexel 7 was home to 4 billion beings. It had stood for 3,000 years, a monument to Draxian engineering and culture. The city stretched across 3 continents, connected by transport tubes that could move 1 million people per hour. The orbital stations housed industries that supplied half the sector with advanced electronics. In 72 hours, it all ended. Fleet Commander Thelax arrived with the Draxian Defense Force when the distress call came. He brought 200 warships, the pride of the Draxian military. They had never lost a battle. Their weapons could crack planets. Their shields could withstand star-level temperatures. None of it mattered. Thelax watched in horror as the void swarm descended on Vexel 7. Millions of creatures, each a nightmare of biological and mechanical fusion, fell upon the planet like rain. His ships opened fire, plasma cannons burning through swarm units by the thousands. The swarm adapted. Within minutes, the creatures began absorbing the plasma energy. Within hours, they were using it to power their own weapons. Thelax tried kinetic weapons, particle beams, graviton pulses. Each time, the swarm learned and adapted faster than his crews could change tactics. The last transmission from Vexel 7 surface came from a residential district, a mother holding her child, screaming for help that would never come. Then the signal cut out. Thelax ordered a retreat. He had lost half his fleet. 4 billion people were dead or consumed. He returned to Council space carrying the truth that no one wanted to hear. The humans had been right. Chancellor Vexelier sat on his throne, reading reports from the outer territories. 7 colonies had gone silent. Defense fleets were reporting contact with unknown hostile forces. The descriptions matched what the humans had warned about. "It cannot be the swarm," Vexelier insisted to his advisors. "It must be something else. Pirates with new technology. A rogue species from beyond our borders, anything except proof that we were wrong about the humans." But the reports kept coming, each one worse than the last. Entire systems dying, billions dead, and every survivor described the same thing, the void swarm, exactly as the humans had warned. Dr. He Yun worked in a council research station in the Meridian sector. She was one of the few humans who had stayed behind when her people left. Her mother, Dr. Hana Wu, had begged her to come home. Hai Un had refused. "Someone needs to be here," she had said. "Someone needs to keep trying to reach them." Now she studied samples from destroyed swarm units. The biology was fascinating and terrifying. The creatures were part organic, part machine, able to incorporate genetic material from consumed species and technology from destroyed ships. They learned and evolved in real time. Hai Yun ran simulations. Every scenario ended in total council extinction within 2 years. She sent her findings to Chancellor Vexelier with a simple message: "Contact humanity. Beg them for help. It is the only way to survive." Vexelier's response was brief: "The Council does not beg." Security Chief Quentar organized the first major defensive line at the Krell Nebula. He gathered ships from 15 different species, over 5,000 vessels. It was the largest military force the Council had assembled in 800 years. The swarm tore through them in 4 days. Quentar watched as every tactic failed. Energy shields were drained and overloaded. Armor was dissolved by swarm acid. Electronic warfare was useless against a hive mind. Conventional strategy meant nothing to an enemy that treated individual units as expendable. By the end, only 300 ships escaped. Quentar's flagship was badly damaged, life support failing. He recorded a final message before evacuating to an escape pod. To whoever finds this, we were not prepared. We did not understand what warfare truly means. We have not fought a real war in centuries. We have forgotten how to survive. If anyone hears this, learn from our failure. Pride kills civilizations. The Council tried everything they could imagine. They unleashed biological weapons designed to destroy organic matter. The swarm consumed the weapons and incorporated immunity into their biology within days. They tried hacking the hive mind using advanced AI. The swarm absorbed the AI and became smarter. They attempted diplomatic contact, broadcasting messages of peace in every known language. The swarm's only response was to consume the transmission stations. Finally, they deployed their ultimate weapon. The quantum destabilizer had taken 2 centuries to build. It could unravel the fabric of space-time itself, destroying everything in a targeted area. The Council fired it at the largest swarm concentration, a fleet of 10 million creatures gathered around a consumed star system. The weapon worked. The entire swarm fleet vanished in a cascade of collapsing quantum fields. The Council celebrated. They had found a weakness. They could win. 3 days later, the swarm attacked using quantum manipulation. They had learned how to weaponize the very effect that had destroyed their fleet. Now they could phase through shields and armor, appearing inside ships and stations without warning. The Council realized the horrible truth. Every weapon they used against the swarm made it stronger. Every tactic taught it new ways to kill. They were literally training their own executioners. The core worlds came under threat. These were the ancient homeworlds of the founding Council species. Some civilizations had existed for over 1 million years. Their cultures had survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, and countless disasters. Now they faced extinction. High Arbiter Mulquin called an emergency session. The Council chamber, once filled with 40 species, now held representatives from only 23. 17 species had been completely consumed. 4 more were on the verge of extinction. "We must consider what was previously unthinkable," Mulquin said, its crystal body flickering with distress. "We must contact humanity." Chancellor Vexler stood slowly. He looked old now, his scales dull, his movements tired. "And say what? That we were wrong? That millions died because of our arrogance? That we need the help of the species we dismissed and insulted?" "Yes," Mulquin replied simply. "Exactly that. Pride is a luxury we can no longer afford." The debate lasted 6 hours. Some Council members refused to consider asking humans for help. Others argued that humanity had proven themselves untrustworthy by abandoning the Council. A few pointed out that humanity was probably extinct themselves by now, consumed by the same swarm that was killing everyone else. Finally, they voted, 18-5 in favor of contacting humanity. The message was sent on all frequencies. To humanity. "From the Galactic Council, we were wrong. We dismissed your warnings. We insulted your people. We condemned billions to death through our arrogance. We do not deserve your help, but we ask for it anyway. Please, if you still exist, please respond." Days passed. No response. Weeks passed. Silence. Dr. Hai-Yun sent her own message to her mother. "Mom, if you can hear this, please tell them we are dying. Tell them the Council was wrong. Tell them I am sorry I stayed. Tell them children are dying every day. Please." No response. The Council tried again, sending ship after ship to the border of human space. Each one broadcast the same message. "Please help us. Please." The ships returned without making contact. The human border was sealed. Massive defense stations turned away all approaching vessels. No communication was acknowledged. It was as if humanity had disappeared from the galaxy entirely. Chancellor Vexler sat alone in the Council chamber. Around him, the empty seats of extinct species mocked his failures. He thought about all the decisions that had led to this moment. The pride, the arrogance, the absolute certainty that the Council knew best. He had killed them all. Admiral Bomrek, the last surviving senior military officer, entered the chamber. "Chancellor, the swarm has broken through the inner defense line. They will reach Nexus Prime in 72 hours. We have no way to stop them." "Then we die here," Vexilier said. "We die knowing that we did this to ourselves. The humans tried to save us. We destroyed ourselves." Far away, at the border between human and former Council space, long-range sensors detected massive fleet movements. Human ships, thousands of them, were moving into position along the redemption line. But they were not coming to help the Council. They were reinforcing their own borders, preparing for the swarm to break through after consuming all of Council space. Humanity was going to let them all die, and they had earned it. 2 years after humanity's departure, 60% of Council space was gone. Entire sectors had been consumed, turned into gray wastelands, stripped of all life and resources. The void swarm grew larger every day, feeding on the corpses of civilizations that had stood for millennia. Chancellor Vexilier stood on the observation deck of his personal ship, watching Nexus Prime in the distance. The capital world still glowed with city lights, but everyone knew it would not last much longer. Evacuation ships crowded the orbital space, desperate to flee before the swarm arrived. "Chancellor, a delegation has arrived at the outer marker," his aide informed him. "They claim to have permission to enter Council space. They are requesting an audience." "Who are they?" "Humans, sir. Dr. He Yun and someone named Nari Wu." Vexilier felt something twist in his chest. Hope? Shame? He was not sure anymore. "Bring them to my ship immediately." Dr. He Yun had lost weight. She looked tired, her clothes worn from months of living in research stations under constant threat. Next to her stood a young woman who looked remarkably like Dr. Hana Wu, the human scientist who had tried to warn the Council 2 years ago. "I am Nari Wu," the young woman said. "Dr. Hana Wu's daughter. I was born on a Council world. I grew up here. But I am human. And I come with a message from my people." "Please," Vexilier said. "Speak." "We are begging," Nari said simply. "The Council was arrogant. We were wrong. We condemned billions to death because of pride. We do not deserve your help. But we are begging anyway. Not for the leaders who made these choices. Not for the politicians who dismissed your warnings. But for the innocent, the children, the people who never had a voice in these decisions." She pulled out a data drive and handed it to Vexilier. "This contains messages from across Council space, civilians begging for help, scientists who believed humanity from the start, military officers who tried to prepare but were ignored by their leadership. They all ask the same thing: please do not let us die for our leaders' mistakes." Vexilier took the drive with shaking hands. "And if I play this? If I hear these voices? What difference does it make? Your people have sealed their borders. They are not coming to help." "We do not know what they plan," He Yun admitted. "We have been cut off from human government just like you. They are not responding to anyone, not even their own citizens who stayed behind. But we hope that if we could reach you, if we could deliver these messages, somehow, it might make a difference." For 3 weeks, the delegation broadcast their plea on all human frequencies. They played the messages from the data drive, children crying for help, doctors describing hospitals full of dying patients, teachers recording final lessons for students who would never grow up. Human space remained silent. Admiral Bomrek prepared his forces for a final stand at the core systems. He had 700 ships left. Against the swarm's millions, it was hopeless. But he would fight anyway, because it was all he knew how to do. Refugee leader Trelvin coordinated the evacuation of the remaining Council worlds. Ships were overloaded far beyond safety limits. People fought each other for spots on evacuation vessels, Parents threw their children onto departing ships, knowing they would never see them again, but hoping their kids might survive. "Where do we go?" someone asked Trelvin. "Where in the galaxy is safe?" Trelvin had no answer. The swarm was everywhere. It consumed everything. There was nowhere to run. Dr. Hei Yun continued her research even as the walls closed in. She studied swarm behavior patterns, looking for weaknesses that did not exist. In her lab, she made a discovery that changed everything. The swarm was not just attacking randomly, it was studying, learning. It consumed Council databases and analyzed Council biology. It incorporated Council technology into its own structure. The swarm knew everything about the Council species. But there was a gap, a blind spot. The swarm had never encountered humans in actual combat. When humanity evacuated, they took all their military data with them. The swarm's only information about humans came from Council databases, which portrayed humans as primitive and unremarkable. The swarm was preparing to attack human space without understanding what it was facing. Hai-Un sent her findings to Nari Wu. "The humans knew," she wrote. "They did not abandon us out of spite. They abandoned us because staying would have taught the swarm how to fight them. They needed to prepare in isolation, where the swarm could not learn their tactics." Nari read the message and felt something she had not felt in months: hope. Then the sensors detected movement on the human border, massive fleet movements, energy signatures unlike anything the swarm had encountered. The redemption line was activating. But the ships were not coming into Council space. They were positioning themselves behind the fortifications, preparing for defensive combat. Humanity was going to let the swarm finish consuming the Council, then fight it at their own borders. Chancellor Vexilier received the sensor data. He understood the strategy. It was practical, logical. The Council was already lost. Why sacrifice human lives trying to save those who had insulted and dismissed them? He recorded a final message and sent it to human space, not expecting a response. "To humanity, I am Chancellor Vexilier. I led the Council that dismissed your warnings. I called you warmongers and children. I demanded you dismantle your defenses. Billions have died because of my arrogance. Trillions more will die in the coming days. I do not ask for mercy. I do not ask for forgiveness. I ask only that you remember us. When you fight the swarm at your borders, remember that every species in the Council made the same mistake. We believed age meant wisdom. We believed technology meant superiority. We believed peace meant we no longer needed to understand war. We were wrong about everything. Do not make our mistakes. And if you survive, tell the galaxy about us. Tell them about the civilizations that died because they were too proud to listen." He paused, then added quietly, "The humans were right about everything. We were too arrogant to see it." The message was received at human border stations. It was logged and filed. No response was sent. 3 days later, Chancellor Vexilier prepared to evacuate Nexus Prime. The swarm had broken through the last defense lines. In hours, the capital would fall. He stood in the empty council chamber one final time, looking at the seats that represented species now extinct. Then something changed. A human ship entered council space. Not a military vessel. A single, unarmed shuttle. It broadcast a simple message. "Chancellor Vexilier, this is Ambassador Quan Jin. Permission to dock." Vexilier could barely speak. "Permission granted." The shuttle landed in the Council spaceport. Ambassador Quan Jin emerged, flanked by Captain Hyun Tai and Dr. Hana Wu. They walked through the dying city, past the crowds of refugees desperately trying to escape. When they reached the Council chamber, Quan Jin looked at Vexilier for a long moment. The Chancellor saw no mercy in those eyes, no forgiveness. Just cold determination. "You called us warmongers," Quan Jin said. "You said we were paranoid. You demanded we dismantle our defenses, and when we warned you, you censured us. How many died because of your arrogance?" Vexlier's voice broke. All of them. Everyone who has died in this war, their blood is on my hands. I do not ask for mercy. I ask that you save those who remain, the civilians, the children. They did not make these choices. We know, Quan Jin said. Why do you think we are here? Vexilier looked up, confused. We are not doing this for you, Quan Jin continued. We are doing this because it is right. Because someone has to. Because that is what humans do. We fight for those who cannot fight for themselves, even when they do not deserve it. Even when they insulted us and drove us away. We fight because it is the right thing to do. He activated a holographic display. It showed the redemption line and the massive human fleet behind it. Every ship you see has been designed specifically to fight the Void Swarm. Every tactic, every weapon, every strategy built around one principle. If they can adapt, so can we. But better, faster, more creative. You lost because you fought the way you always fought. We will win because we fight the way they do not expect. But the Council? The Council is dead, Quan Jin interrupted. Your governments failed. Your military failed. Your entire civilization failed because it was built on peace for so long that it forgot how to face real war. We will not save the Council. We will save the people. And when this is over, something new will be built. Something better. Captain Hyun Tae stepped forward. We need all your remaining forces at the redemption line in 48 hours. Anyone who can fight, anyone who can fly a ship. We make our stand there. You will let the refugees through? Vexilier asked. Every civilian ship will be escorted to safety behind human lines, Dr. Hanawu said. But your military forces stay and fight. You want redemption? You earn it. Vexilier straightened his spine. For the first time in months, he felt something other than despair. Then we will fight, and we will die if necessary, but we will fight. The redemption line awaited. The last ships of the Council fleet arrived at the redemption line like broken birds seeking shelter. 40 vessels out of what had once been 10,000. Behind them came millions of refugee ships, overloaded with survivors from dozens of species. Children pressed their faces against windows, watching the massive human fortifications grow larger as they approached. Fleet Admiral Dae Sung stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dawn, watching the refugees arrive. Every ship was scanned, documented, and guided to safe passage behind human lines. Not one was turned away. They are not warriors anymore, his second officer observed, watching the battered Council military ships limp into formation. They are already defeated. Then we teach them how to win, Dae Sung replied. On the Council flagship, Chancellor Vexilier met with the human command staff. Captain Hyun Tae stood before a holographic display showing the approaching swarm. Millions of biomechanical nightmares moving through space like a living storm. They will be here in 36 hours, Hyun Tae said. We have positioned your remaining military vessels in support roles. You will not lead the assault. Your people do not know how to fight this enemy. You will follow human tactical commands exactly, or you will die. Admiral Bomrek, who had lost fleet after fleet to the swarm, bristled at the tone. You speak to us like children. You are children in this, Hyun Tae said bluntly. You have not fought a real war in 800 years. Your tactics come from simulations and historical records. Ours come from preparing specifically for this enemy for 3 years. You want to help? Then listen and follow orders. Bomrek looked at Chancellor Vexilier, who nodded slowly. The Admiral bowed his head. We will follow your lead. Dr. Hana Wu reunited with her daughter Nari in the science section of the Eternal Dawn. They embraced for a long time, neither speaking. Finally, Hana pulled back and looked at her daughter. I thought I had lost you. You almost did, Nari admitted. Dr. Hai-eun and I have been analyzing swarm biology. We found their weakness. She activated a display showing swarm neural patterns. They adapt to everything because they learn from everything they consume. But their hive mind cannot process certain types of information. Complex emotions, abstract thought, creative chaos. They are built on logic and efficiency. We need to attack them with the opposite. General Sora Han entered the room. Explain. The swarm consumes biological matter and technological data, Hai Yun said, joining the conversation. When they encounter something new, they incorporate it into their hive knowledge. But human consciousness is different. Our thoughts are not linear. We feel contradicting emotions simultaneously. We make illogical decisions based on hope and love and fear. If we can force the hive mind to process human consciousness directly, it might create a cascade failure. How do we force-feed them human thought patterns? Sora asked. Captain Hyun-tae, who had been listening, spoke quietly. A direct neural connection. Someone broadcasts their consciousness directly into the hive mind while in physical contact with a swarm unit. Everyone went silent. They all understood what that meant. Whoever made that connection would die. We will discuss that option if we reach it, Sora said firmly. First, we fight conventionally. We make them bleed for every meter of space. The Void Swarm hit the redemption line like a tidal wave hitting a seawall. Millions of creatures crashed against human defenses, each one adapted from the countless battles they had won against the Council. They learned immediately that humans fought differently. The first wave encountered automated defense stations that self-destructed the moment the swarm began analyzing them. The second wave faced weapons that changed frequencies randomly, never firing the same way twice. The third wave ran into minefields that activated based on chaotic patterns with no logical sequence. The swarm adapted, but every adaptation took time, and humans used that time to change tactics again. Captain Hyun-tae commanded the forward assault groups from his flagship, Indomitable Spirit. He led strike teams deep into swarm formations, hitting critical nodes and then retreating before the swarm could respond effectively. His tactics were not about winning individual battles. They were about teaching the swarm that every victory had a cost. They are learning too fast, one of his officers reported. They have adapted to our plasma weapons. Switch to kinetic, Hyun-tae ordered, and prepare the viral protocols. The viral protocols were Dr. Hai Yun's idea. Digital viruses designed not to destroy swarm systems, but to confuse them. They inserted false data into the hive mind, made the swarm see threats that did not exist, caused units to attack each other. It worked for hours before the swarm adapted, but those hours saved thousands of lives. Admiral Dae-sung coordinated the defense from his command ship. He positioned Council forces in support roles, using their remaining ships to reinforce human defensive lines. Admiral Bomrek and his officers learned quickly. They stopped trying to fight like Council admirals and started following human tactical doctrine. Human tactics do not make sense, Bomrek admitted to his crew. They sacrifice positions to save ships. They retreat when winning. They attack when losing. But it works because the swarm cannot predict chaos. General Sora Han unleashed Operation Firebreak. Human scientists had developed weapons that created temporary dimensional rifts in space. When activated, these rifts cut off sections of the swarm from the hive mind. Isolated swarm units became confused. Without the hive mind to guide them, they reverted to basic programming. They could still fight, but they lost the coordination and adaptation that made them so deadly. The battle raged for weeks. Humanity lost millions. Entire fleets were sacrificed. But for every loss, the humans learned and adapted. And unlike the Council, humans had spent 3 years preparing for exactly this fight. Captain Yuna Min, the freighter captain who had sent the first swarm warning, now commanded a destroyer called New Busan's Revenge. She led civilian volunteers who had joined the military after losing their homes. They fought with personal hatred for the swarm, and that hatred made them creative. "The swarm killed my family," Yuna said to her crew. "They destroyed my world, but they made a mistake. They taught us that we have nothing left to lose, and humans with nothing to lose are the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy." Then came the moment everyone had feared. The swarm broke through a critical defensive line. Millions of creatures poured toward the inner human colonies. If they reached the civilian populations behind the redemption line, billions would die. Captain Hyun-tae made his decision. He loaded his ship with the neural broadcast equipment Dr. Hana Wu and her team had developed. He recorded a final message to Admiral Dae-sung. "Tell the families of my crew that they died saving humanity. Tell the Council species that we did not do this for them. We did this because it was right. And tell anyone who listens that humans do not surrender. Ever." The indomitable spirit flew directly into the heart of the swarm breach. Hyun-tae's crew activated the neural broadcast, sending human consciousness directly into the hive mind. Memories, emotions, dreams, the chaotic, beautiful, contradictory nature of human thought. The swarm hive mind tried to process it, tried to analyze it, tried to incorporate it. It could not. Human consciousness was too complex, too contradictory, too fundamentally illogical. The hive mind, built on perfect efficiency and logical adaptation, could not reconcile the existence of beings who acted against their own self-interest out of love, who sacrificed themselves for abstract ideals, who fought hopeless battles because it felt right. The cascade failure began. The hive mind fractured. Unable to maintain coherent control while processing the impossible complexity of human thought, the swarm broke into thousands of smaller clusters, each one losing coordination with the others. The unified, unstoppable swarm became thousands of manageable threats. Hyun-tae's last transmission was simple. Now. Hit them now. Human forces and council remnants struck simultaneously. The fragmented swarm clusters could still fight, but without central coordination, they were vulnerable. One by one, the clusters were destroyed or driven back. The battle lasted 6 months total. When it ended, humanity had lost 3 million military personnel and countless civilians. The Council had lost most of what remained of their species, but they had won. The swarm was not destroyed, but it was broken, scattered. No longer an extinction-level threat. 5 years later, a new council chamber opened. It was smaller than the original, built on a human world. Only 15 species remained of the original 40. The others existed only in historical records and memorial gardens. Chancellor Nari Wu stood at the podium. She had been elected to lead the new council, a human-born daughter of the scientist who had tried to warn the old council. Her first act was to dedicate a memorial to the fallen. Holographic statues filled the memorial garden. Captain Hyun-tae standing on the bridge of his ship. Dr. Hae-yoon working in her laboratory. Admiral Bomrek, who died defending a refugee convoy. Thousands of others, human and non-human alike. Ambassador Kwon Jin, now old and retired, spoke at the dedication ceremony. His voice was quiet but firm. "We did not walk away because we were selfish. We walked away because you would not listen. We came back not because you deserved it, but because billions of innocent people did not deserve to die for their leaders' mistakes. Remember this day. Remember the cost of arrogance. Remember that wisdom does not come from age or technology. It comes from the willingness to admit when you are wrong." The new council voted unanimously to establish the redemption protocols. Every warning, no matter how unlikely, would be investigated thoroughly. Every voice, no matter how young or unpopular, would be heard. And most importantly, the galaxy would maintain the ability to fight, not just the desire for peace. Chancellor Vexilier, who had survived the war, stood among the memorial statues. He had resigned from all positions of authority. He now spent his days helping rebuild destroyed worlds, a penance that would last the rest of his life. He stopped before the statue of Captain Hyun-tae. "You tried to save us," he said quietly. "I did not listen. I will spend the rest of my life making sure no one forgets that lesson." Humanity did not dominate the new council. They did not seek power or control. They simply took their place as equals among the survivors, respected not for their weapons or their technology, but for their willingness to fight for what was right. The galaxy had learned its lesson the hard way. When humans walked away, the galaxy fell. When humans came back, the galaxy survived. And in the end, that made all the difference.